Well, the winner from yesterday's vote is, of course, the right. Because the PVV, which is the far-right party in the Netherlands, won 6 seats in parliament, which is substantial for the Dutch. So I think the far-right is the ultimate winner, and this is quite clear.
Ultimately, what do you think is the message really from voters here in the Netherlands for European institutions? Because when you think about the strongest support for right-wing, for the far right, at the same time the turnout is actually higher than in previous European elections, what do you think Dutch people are telling European institutions?
Well, what we see in the Netherlands is a polarized situation. So the left and the far right are completely polarized, and they are talking to voters and saying that this is a battle about democracy. And so the outcome of these elections, as we see it now, is, I think, a sort of prolonging from the situation we saw in November in national elections. So the far right is continuing to win elections, and the answer of the Greens and the Socialists to join forces didn't help them very much.
So let's think about the strongest support for the far right. As you mentioned, PVV, the Geert Wilders party, won the elections back in November. They're also seeing quite a lot of support in the wake of these European exit polls. He has said that what he wants to do in Brussels is to be part of this stronger right-wing coalition in the European Parliament. As a member of one of these parties in the European Parliament, do you think it's feasible that the far right is actually going to manage to come together and form this superpower at the European Parliament?
Well, from a political point of view, from a political standpoint, this would be, of course, the obvious thing to do. Because if they join forces, and they, as we see it now, they would become probably the largest political group in the European Parliament, and this would give them a lot of power, extra power, and it would break the cordon sanitaire for the ultra-right, the ID. But I'm not sure if it will come to this, because well, we've seen that Ursula von der Leyen is going to Mrs. Meloni in Italy quite often to appease her and to, well, maybe take her into the EPP. This could be happening. So I'm not sure how stable the ECR group is. And I can understand Mrs. Meloni thinking that it is more interesting to join forces with EVP than with the ID. So I think this is the battle that will go on after next Sunday.
Very interesting. You're suggesting that that scenario actually hadn't been played out as of yet. When you think about the role that Giorgia Meloni can actually play in the outcome of these European elections, do you think ultimately she is indeed willing to work with Ursula von der Leyen, or she is actually still thinking about perhaps working more closely with Marine Le Pen?
I think ultimately she will choose to be independent in ECR, because there is, of course, power to gain if she joins forces with Le Pen in Europe, but then she will lose out being a more acceptable partner for EVP. So she runs the risk of getting into a cordon sanitaire herself. And this would, of course, get her into much trouble, because as we see it now, the SD, the EVP, the Renew and the Greens would join forces to stay in the cordon sanitaire for the ID and ECR group together. This is a huge risk. I'm not sure that Mrs. Meloni is willing to take. On the other hand, if she joins forces with the EVP, then her party members will be part of the EVP, and they have a strong party discipline. There is no independence there whatsoever. So then she would lose, what I say, a clear face for her internal national political profile. And this would mean a risk as well.